Let me tell you something that might surprise you. Women never forget certain men, not because of how much money they had or how good looking they were or how flashy they came across. No, we remember men who made us feel something different. And here's the truth a lot of men don't realize. It's not always the guy with the biggest muscles, the sharpest suits, or the smoothest lines who stays in our heads. It's the man who does very specific things, subtle things that trigger something much deeper inside us. See, women get attention from men all the time. Compliments, messages, dates, even guys trying to impress us. It happens constantly. But most of it, we forget. It blends together because it feels the same. What actually makes a man unforgettable isn't what most guys think. It's not over-the-top romance, and it's not being perfect. It's the little shifts in behavior, the moments where you stand out because you showed a side most men don't. That's why I want to be real with you in this video. I'm not here to give you fluffy advice or the typical dating cliches. I'm here to give you the truth, the things women talk about with each other, the things we admit behind closed doors, and the things we never forget when a man does them. Now, some of what I'm about to say might feel uncomfortable, maybe even a little provocative because it goes against what you've probably been told, but that's the point. If you actually want to stand out in a woman's mind, whether she's someone you're dating, someone you want, or even someone who once overlooked you, you need to understand these 5 things, because once you do, you'll realize it doesn't take being perfect to be unforgettable. It just takes knowing how women really work. And that's exactly what I'm about to show you. 1, she never forgets the man who makes her feel safe. Let me be real with you here. A woman will always remember how a man made her feel. You can buy her gifts, take her to expensive dinners, or say all the right words. But if she doesn't feel safe with you, none of that sticks. And when I say safe, I don't just mean protecting her from physical danger, though that matters too. I mean the kind of safety that goes much deeper. Emotional safety, mental safety, and even spiritual safety. That's what a woman carries with her long after you're gone. Think about it like this. A woman is naturally wired to be cautious with her heart. She won't fully open up unless she knows you're not going to use her vulnerability against her. When she's with a man who doesn't judge her, who listens without turning her feelings into a weakness, she feels something rare. Relief. And trust me, women never forget that because the truth is most men don't provide it. Many men either dismiss what she says, make her feel dramatic, or use her confessions as a weapon later. But the man who can hold space for her without making her feel foolish, that man lives in her memory forever. Imagine a moment where she's completely stressed. Maybe life is crashing down or she's doubting herself. Most people would tell her to calm down or stop overthinking. But the man she never forgets doesn't do that. He looks at her steady and grounded and says, "I've got you. You don't need to figure this out alone." That's it. Just like that, her walls drop. That's the kind of energy she will replay in her mind months, even years later. And here's what you need to know. This isn't about pretending to be her therapist. And it's not about trying to fix every problem she has. It's about showing her that she can let her guard down around you without being punished for it. A woman may forget the exact words you said, but she will never forget the way her chest felt lighter when she was with you. That's why this is powerful. Because no matter what happens later, even if she moves on, even if the relationship ends, she will carry that memory of safety with her. And once a woman has felt it, she can't unfill it. She'll compare every other man she meets to the one who gave her that sense of calm and security. So here's the truth. Women never forget the man who made them feel safe. Not because of money, not because of looks, but because that's the man who touched something far deeper than the surface. That's the man who stands out in her heart long after everything else fades. 2, she never forgets the man who truly listens. Here's something most men underestimate: the power of listening. And I don't mean the passive type of listening where you're just nodding while waiting for your turn to speak. I mean real active listening where she feels seen, heard, and understood without interruption or judgment. A woman never forgets the man who listens to her in a way that makes her feel like her voice actually matters. Why? Because it's rare. Most people listen to respond, not to understand. And women know this. She can tell when you're just pretending to pay attention, when your eyes glaze over, or when you jump straight into giving her solutions without absorbing what she actually said. But the man who slows down, locks in, and gives her his undivided presence, that man leaves an impression that sticks. Let me break this down. When a woman talks, she isn't always looking for answers. Sometimes she just wants to release what's been bottled up inside her. And the men who mess this up are the ones who either dismiss her feelings or try to fix everything instantly. That kills attraction. What keeps her connected is when you don't rush her, when you let her speak fully, and when you reflect back that you understand. Simple phrases like, "I hear you," or "that sounds tough," go further than most men realize because it shows you're tuned into her, not just brushing her off. And here's the secret. When a woman feels listened to, she naturally feels closer to you. She opens up more. She trusts you more. And that bond you create isn't something she can replicate easily with just anyone. That's why the memory of it lingers. Even years down the road, she'll think about you and remember, he was the only one who actually listened to me without making me feel crazy or dramatic. Think about how rare that is in her world. Friends half listen, coworkers cut her off, family members might dismiss her, and most men only listen long enough to get what they want. But the man who genuinely gives her his presence stands out like light in the dark. That's the man she replays in her head when she's talking to someone new who doesn't measure up. So here's the truth. Listening is not about being passive, it's an active skill. It's about leaning in, catching the little details, remembering the things she tells you, and making her feel like her inner world matters. And when you do that, you become unforgettable. Not because you said the perfect words, but because you gave her the rare gift of being fully heard. That's why women never forget the man who listens, because in a world full of noise, he's the one who gave her silence, space, and understanding. And that's powerful. 3, she never forgets the man who protects her peace. Every woman values peace. And the truth is, most men don't realize how much it matters. A woman never forgets the man who made her life calmer, safer, and lighter instead of stressful, chaotic, or heavy. Protection isn't only about shielding her from physical harm. It's about protecting her mental and emotional peace. And when you're the man who brings that kind of stability, you become impossible for her to erase from memory. Think about it. Many women go through life dealing with drama, whether it's family issues, competitive friends, work stress, or even past toxic relationships. If you come into her world and add to that chaos, she'll eventually resent you. But if you're the man who brings calm into her storm, that impact stays with her forever. This doesn't mean you have to be perfect or emotionless. It means you know how to handle challenges without losing control, without projecting anger onto her, and without making her life harder. For example, if she's venting about something, you don't escalate it by being dismissive or reactive. Instead, you hold your composure. Let her feel safe around you and make her believe that with you, she doesn't have to constantly be on guard. What women will never admit out loud is that they deeply crave a man who can provide peace because it's so rare. Many men think they impress women with money, looks, or big gestures. But what makes him unforgettable is the emotional environment he creates. Was she relaxed around you? Did she feel like she could be herself without fear of judgment? Did your presence lower her anxiety instead of raising it? If the answer is yes, she'll remember you forever. Here's where most men mess up. They confuse protecting her peace with being a yes man or avoiding conflict at all costs. That's not it. Protecting her peace also means setting boundaries, standing firm when needed, and not letting her drag you into unnecessary drama. Women respect men who can maintain control over themselves and refuse to live in chaos. That self-discipline gives her security, and security is unforgettable. Years later, even if she's with someone else, she'll compare him to you. If her new partner brings stress, arguments, or drama, she'll find herself thinking, "It was never like this with him. With him, I felt calm. I felt safe." And trust me, that comparison is powerful. So here's the lesson. You don't have to fight the world to be a protector. You just need to bring stability, calm, and clarity into her life. Be the man who protects her peace, and you'll live in her mind long after everything else fades. 4, she never forgets the man who challenges her. Here's the truth most men don't realize. Women might enjoy being admired, spoiled, and pursued, but they don't forget the man who challenges them. A man who isn't afraid to call her out, push her to grow, or refuse to tolerate her games stands out in a way that burns into her memory. Why? Because he's rare. Most guys do the opposite. They bend over backward, agree with everything she says, and avoid conflict at all costs. At first, she might like the attention, but deep down, she doesn't respect it. When a man never challenges her, she sees him as predictable, easy to manipulate, and eventually forgettable. But when a man is different, when he's strong enough to challenge her behavior, her mindset, or even her comfort zone, he triggers something deeper in her. It's not about being confrontational for no reason. It's about refusing to be a pushover. For example, if she's being dramatic or testing boundaries, the man who calmly but firmly says, "I'm not entertaining this nonsense," instantly separates himself from every guy who would have just submitted to keep her happy. This kind of man leaves an impression because he forces her to elevate. He makes her question herself, makes her respect him more, and makes her realize he's not like the rest. Even if she argues in the moment, deep down she admires him because he's strong enough to stand on his own principles instead of living for her validation. Here's what makes this unforgettable. Women don't forget the men who shape them. If you're the reason she became more disciplined, more self-aware, or more accountable, she'll always remember you as the man who didn't just let her coast. You were the man who raised her standards, even for herself. Even years later, when she meets men who are agreeable, she'll think, they're too easy. They don't challenge me like he did. That comparison sticks. The man who challenges her creates emotional tension, and that tension fuels attraction and memory. So don't be afraid to draw the line. Don't be afraid to say no. Don't be afraid to make her earn your respect instead of just handing it over because the man who challenges her is the man she never forgets. 5, she never forgets the man who made her feel desired. Here's something you need to understand about women. They're constantly being looked at, noticed, even complimented. But there's a difference between a man who simply acknowledges her beauty and the man who makes her feel deeply desired. That second one, she never forgets. Most men make the mistake of either overdoing it or underdoing it. Some bombard her with shallow compliments. You're so hot. You're gorgeous. To the point it loses its meaning. Others, in fear of looking needy, hold back completely, giving her nothing to feed off of. But the man who strikes the balance, the one who can look her in the eyes, hold her attention, and make her feel like she's the only woman in the world, that man sticks in her mind. Making a woman feel desired isn't about words alone. It's about presence. It's the way you look at her like you're not just seeing her body, but her essence. It's the way you touch her when the moment is right. Not desperately, but confidently with control. It's the way you carry yourself around her that communicates, I don't need you, but I want you, and I want you badly. That energy is magnetic. Here's the truth. Women forget flattery, but they don't forget feeling wanted. A woman will remember the man who looked at her in a way that made her knees weak. She'll remember the man who didn't just give attention out of habit, but out of genuine masculine desire. She'll remember the way he made her feel feminine, beautiful, and craved. Even if she moves on, even if she dates someone else, that memory lingers. Because deep inside, women want to feel chosen, desired, and feminine in the presence of a strong man. If you gave her that experience, if you ignited that fire in her, she won't be able to erase you from her mind. And here's the kicker. Desire is rare. Most men are either too thirsty or too distant. The man who can balance restraint with raw passion, that's unforgettable. That's the man she'll compare every future connection to. 6, she never forgets the man who walked away with dignity. There's one type of man women talk about for years after he's gone. The man who walked away when he wasn't being valued and did it with complete dignity. Not anger, not drama, not begging, just quiet confidence. That leaves a permanent mark on a woman's mind. See, most men do the opposite. When a woman pulls away, loses interest, or disrespects them, they panic, they chase, they argue, they try to prove their worth, and all that does is confirm what she already felt, that she was above him. But the man who calmly accepts reality and withdraws without lowering his standards, that man triggers something powerful in her psychology. Why? Because he showed her he wasn't afraid of losing her. He proved without words that his value doesn't come from her approval. And that stings. It forces her to confront a truth she can't escape. If he can walk away, it's because he knows he can be wanted elsewhere. That's when she realizes she lost a man who won't tolerate being taken for granted. Here's what makes it unforgettable. Most women are used to men folding under pressure. They're used to emotional outbursts, desperate messages, or last attempts to hold on. But when you show the opposite, calm detachment, self-control, and dignity, you separate yourself from the crowd. You become the man who handled rejection or disrespect in a way that raised your value instead of lowering it. And trust me, she'll replay that in her head long after the breakup, long after she thought she'd moved on. She'll remember that you didn't fight for crumbs. You chose yourself. And that's something a woman cannot easily forget because it reminds her of the kind of strength most men don't have. That's the man she compares others to. That's the man who stands out. That's the man she'll never really forget. 7. She never forgets the man who made her feel safe. If there's one thing that cuts deeper than looks, money, or charm, it's safety. A woman never forgets the man who made her feel safe, not just physically, but emotionally too. Because deep down, every woman craves security. And when she experiences it with a man, it etches into her memory like a permanent mark. Here's the truth. Most men think safety means being physically strong or protective. Sure, that matters, but it's only part of the equation. Safety is also about being reliable, consistent, and trustworthy. It's about being the man she knows won't crumble when life gets hard. The man who keeps his word. The man who doesn't let his emotions control him in chaos. That type of safety is rare and unforgettable. Think about it. A woman might date men who are exciting, fun, or even wildly attractive. But if those men also made her feel insecure, unstable, or unsure of where she stood, they fade from memory. They blend into the crowd of fun but forgettable experiences. But the man who gave her peace of mind, who created an environment where she could be feminine, vulnerable, and relaxed, that's the man she keeps in her thoughts. It's not about being soft or overprotective. It's about balance. It's about showing strength, but without unnecessary aggression. It's about being calm in moments where others lose control. It's about showing up consistently instead of being unpredictable. That's what builds trust in her nervous system. And once she feels it, she can't unfeel it. Even if she leaves, even if she tries to move on, every man she meets afterward gets measured against that standard. If they can't give her that same peace and stability, she'll keep remembering the one who did. And that's the irony. Women may chase excitement in the moment, but in the long run, what stays in their memory isn't chaos, it's safety. The man who gave her that will always hold a place in her mind whether she admits it or not. Women don't forget the man who leaves an emotional fingerprint on their soul. And it's not about flashy gifts, smooth lines, or temporary thrills. It's about the way you make her feel. If you gave her a sense of mystery, made her laugh, challenged her to grow, respected her boundaries, left her with unfinished emotions, embodied confidence, showed her depth, and most importantly, made her feel safe, you left a mark that no other man can erase. You see, attraction fades, looks change, excitement burns out, but the emotions you awaken in her stay locked inside her memory. That's why even years later, women think about certain men when they can't sleep. That's why they sometimes compare new men to the ones from their past. And that's why the man who understood female psychology and didn't overexpose himself ends up unforgettable. Here's the truth you need to remember. Being unforgettable isn't about chasing or proving yourself to a woman. It's about being grounded, disciplined, and secure in yourself. Because when a man truly knows his value, he naturally leaves an impact without trying too hard. That's the man a woman remembers, not because he begged for her attention, but because he carried himself in a way she couldn't ignore. So don't aim to impress. Aim to embody the traits that women never forget. Do this, and whether she stays or goes, your presence will always linger in her mind.